Hello and welcome to Contra Mundum. My name is Susanna Eileen Martin and I am your host. And today I have a special guest and I know this episode is going to go long. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself, Kevin?
Hi, I'm Kevin McHugh. I'm a student at Liberty University, and my major is transmedia writing concentration.
Yeah, he's a digital media major with a concentration in transmedia writing, just like me, which basically means it's a really fancy way of saying screenwriting. And again, I am going to warn you, I'm fairly certain this episode is going to go pretty long because of the conversations we've already had about the subject, which tend to range the entire break in between my classes. So, fair warning. All right, so our first thing I want to talk about, can you tell me what the idea of the show is that everyone is an expert about something. What is your expertise in?
My expertise, well,
Superheroes.
well, I really like superheroes, DC and Marvel, and pretty much anything in between. I've always been into comics ever since I was a little kid. Like, my favorite was Spider-Man as a kid, and I was like any normal boy where I'd tie. Superman was also one of my favorites, where I'd tie like a blanket around my neck and fly. But actually,
or attempt to, anyways.
yeah. Well, what was kind of funny is my very first movie going experience when I was 1 year old. My parents took me to see Batman Returns.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, luckily, when I was that young, I didn't see most of it. But yeah, Batman was definitely the thing.
My first movie-going experience that I can remember, apparently my first movie-going experience was my parents took me to see Winnie the Pooh, but I don't remember that. But the first one I can remember was seeing Spider-Man 2 in theaters. I was when did that come out? Like 2002? So I think
2004, and that was a good
something.
one. Yep.
My dad took just me to go see it. It was the best thing ever.
Oh yeah,
my
I
undying
remember
love
that.
of superheroes. This is basically my expertise. If I was to pick something that I am an expert in, it's basically the Marvel Cinematic Universe would be my main expertise. So first off, the thing that I want to ask you is Marvel or DC?
I'm kind of controversial because I like them both. I really do.
Cop out.
It's not a cop out. Honestly, I fall into the category that you can see on a lot of YouTube pages. I fall into the category of, why can't we all just get along?
Oh gosh.
I wish. Now, I definitely see problems in both studios, mainly Warner Bros., but we'll get to that.
We will.
But I want DC to succeed, and I want Marvel to succeed. I like both of these I like both characters in both studios and both companies, and I want to see them shine. I want to see both superheroes portrayed in the greatest way possible.
Yeah, I guess I'm actually kind of the same because DC has some of the best superheroes and I really do want to see them done well. But at the same time, I'm more of a Marvel nerd and I always have been since I love Spider-Man and the Avengers and that kind of thing. Yeah, so I'm more of a Marvel nerd. You have taken the in-between road of I like them both equally.
Well, the reason why I also really like them both equally is, in my childhood, it was Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man. So and it was all three. I liked all of them all at the same time. It was never, I like Batman more than Superman, or Superman more than Batman, or Spider-Man more than. I liked all of them equally. And then when I played Marvel Ultimate Alliance, that was when I really started opening myself up to Marvel and was like, wow, this is interesting.
Like the Facebook game?
Not the Facebook game. The one.
Oh, that was Avengers Alliance.
I forgot what it was, but it was like you played as four people, four characters, and like it went throughout the Marvel universe.
Oh,
and it was like an RPG thing. And,
all right, okay, that's interesting. I like that. I personally, like, my favorite of the movies is Marvel. Would you agree that they've been kind of the better ones lately?
Yeah. It's unfortunate because I want DC to succeed, but yes, right now, Disney with Marvel is definitely winning.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what is your favorite and least favorite Marvel movies? Start with your favorite.
Oh gosh.
I can start with mine if it helps.
That would actually help.
Okay. I would have to say my favorite Marvel movie is either, and I am going to take the cop-out way, I'm either going to say it's the Avengers or Captain America, Civil War. Because both of those were just so funny. I'd probably lean toward the Avengers more. Just because it was just so different from anything you'd seen before.
Yeah. Avengers is probably the best superhero movie of all time. It was everything it needed to be. And when people start like going into the plot holes and stuff, it's like, guys,
calm down. It's a superhero movie.
It's everything a superhero fan, or even like anybody who doesn't even know comic books, it was funny. It was action packed. It had everything.
Even had a little emotion in it.
Yeah, it had. Actually, I was talking about this with my little brother the other day, that one thing I can really appreciate about Avengers was it wasn't just the Avengers fighting bad guys. Like, that would have been great on its own. I thought it was really ingenious that the real bad guys, the real villains, were us. Because we were willing to destroy an entire city. And the Avengers didn't really save the world from robots or aliens. They kind of saved the world from us. And I just thought that was so unique and so like, I was like, wow, way to not just have the typical cliched superhero way of going about things, but actually have depth and actually talk about things that happen on our world today. The idea that we would probably do the same. We would probably make that stupid decision.
We would probably try to nuke New York City. Yeah,
we would probably do that. And it's unfortunate to say it, but it's so interesting that that movie would actually address that.
Yeah, it's way ahead of its time, I think, as far as that sort of thing goes. You kind of see a little bit of that in Batman versus Superman, but not really. Okay, so what is your least favorite Marvel movie?
Oh gosh. I would have to say Thor: The Dark World.
Really? Okay. Why?
I just felt like, besides the ether, because we needed to know, the Infinity
We needed
Stone.
to know that, yeah.
But other than that, it just was pointless. It just, like, I know so many people would disagree with me, but one of my favorite Marvel films is Thor. I don't know what it is, but I just really connected to that movie. I really liked it, especially since I'm not a huge Thor fan to begin with. Like, when I was a kid, I didn't really understand it. I didn't really know much about it. But when I saw that, I was going in going, okay, it's another Marvel film. I wonder what this is going to be like. And it blew me away. I thought the portrayal of Loki, for one thing, because anytime I heard of Loki, I thought he was a stupid, like, he was...
He's usually portrayed as sort of like a trickster and a goofball.
From The Mask. That's where I heard of Loki.
Oh,
I thought this was going to be some silly thing, but the way that Tom Hiddleston played it, and I also think a lot of it was the director Kenneth Branagh, just this Shakespearean way of doing it. And I thought that was such a clever idea. In order to take it seriously, take it in a Shakespearean way, not this cosmic thither and all that stuff that you would normally see in the comics.
Like, you kind of saw it in the Dark World.
Not that I saw it in the Dark World, just number one, I didn't think Thor grew. I
Dark World?
No, I don't think he had much character development, and it was mainly on a love story that I already wasn't really behind in the first movie. In fact, that was, if I would say there is a flaw in the first movie, it would be that forced love story, but I liked the friendship between Thor and Jane Foster. Like, if you look in the comics, Jane Foster is a really interesting character, and Natalie Portman did not play it that way. but like, Thor: The Dark World, it was bland. It was it was just very forgettable.
There wasn't much that changed in that. Like, other than the fact that it set up the ether, and that was kind of cool, but it didn't really, nothing happened, really, like, to change the actual story. Versus you take the Iron Man movies, which my I would say if I was going to go for my least favorite, it would either be, again, I'm going to go for two because I'm a loser. I would say either Iron Man 2, which is basically just a rehashing of Iron Man 1, or Age of Ultron, which was unfortunately sort of, I don't know. It was very bland. Again,
we'll get there because
the thing is that I look back at Age of Ultron and I like it more now that I've seen Civil War. Because so much in Civil War connects to Age of Ultron, and it makes a lot of sense. And plus, Age of Ultron did introduce the Scarlet Witch, so I have to say probably my least favorite Marvel movie would be the second Iron Man. Because it really was just a rehashing of the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it's at the point we've already seen this. There's no point to it.
Oh, but a close second to least favorite would definitely have to be Ant-Man.
Ant-Man?
Yeah.
I loved Ant-Man.
I loved the humor in Ant-Man, but I don't know. That was another movie that was very forgettable for me. And
his origin stories are hard.
I saw the test footage, and I saw what Edgar Wright was going to do with it. And it just...
Oh, it would have been so much better.
It had moments where it was like, all right, that was cool, but I could tell that's Edgar Wright. Like the briefcase fight, I could tell that was Edgar Wright. That had Edgar Wright all over it. But some of the camera angles, and it might be petty to say, but the helmet. And hold on.
It looks so close to the comics, though.
I wanted to actually, from the comics, you actually see his mouthpiece go down, and you saw the expression in his mouth, and I was missing that from Paul Rudd. I really liked Paul Rudd as that character. I wanted to see him in the mask. It just felt like
he was almost more fun in Civil War than he was in Ant-Man.
Because because you saw a little bit more of his face in Civil War.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I also felt like Ant-Man was so... It was so like, oh, look at how cool this is, rather than us actually being Ant-Man. Rather than us actually going through the adventure with him. Rather than having camera angles to where, like, for instance, there was no POV shot of him being so small and running on that gun. Instead, we just saw him run on the gun. And I don't know, it just... It didn't blow me away as much as I really wanted it to.
Yeah. I really liked Ant-Man. I thought it was hilarious. But mainly it was because of Paul Rudd. Mm-hmm. It was one of those movies.
Oh, yeah.
It was I had the same reaction when I watched what was the new Wolverine movie? Was it Logan? Mm-hmm. I had the same reaction when I watched Logan. We might actually talk about that later.
Oh yeah.
But it was one movie, the story itself didn't blow me away, but the acting was so good. And that was the thing that I loved about Logan. But let's not talk about Logan until later. We'll probably have a fairly long conversation about that. But next I want to go, what is your favorite DC movie and least favorite DC movie? And I know that's kind of hard right now because there aren't actually a whole lot of them. Dark Knight for favorite?
Gosh. I know I'm in the minority. But I actually it's kind of a tie between Batman Begins. Oh wait, sorry. My favorite DC movie of all time, the original Batman. From Batman? 1989.
The Tim Burton?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Okay.
That movie completely captured Batman to a T. And I know a lot of people they go, but Heath Ledger's Joker was so much better than Jack Nicholson. Heath Ledger's Joker is phenomenal, and
his Joker was better, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm not entirely certain that the Batman was better. Christian Bale's Batman.
Right. But I want to say that Jack Nicholson still, there was fun to it. I really enjoyed his portrayal of Joker. And very similar to the comics. For instance, my favorite part, and it was so small but there was so many implications to it, was the fact that he tells his main guy, his henchman Bob, he goes, Bob, give me a gun, and then he shoots him.
Oh
it's
gosh.
That
I haven't
is
actually
Joker.
seen that movie.
Oh, you've never
That-
seen it?
No, I haven't. I've seen bits and pieces,
Oh,
but I've never actually
I'm
seen
so
the whole
sorry
thing.
for spoiling it.
No, it's okay.
I'm telling you, you have to see it.
Okay.
The atmosphere, the theme by Danny Elfman, it just oozed Batman.
Okay, one thing that I have to say is I forgot to say you can pick animated movies. And personally, my favorite Batman movie or my favorite DC movie in general are animated movies. Like the top two that I can think of are Mask of the Phantasm, which is just the best Batman movie. In my personal opinion, I think it's the best Batman movie.
It's amazing.
And probably what was another Batman movie? What was it?
Under the Red Hood?
Yes, Under the Red Hood. I've been watching all of the DC animated movies. I'm on like 20 of 25 or something like that. I'm like 5 from the end of all of them. But Under the Red Hood was definitely my favorite. The only thing that pulled me out of Under the Red Hood was the voice acting, because the Joker was not Mark Hamill, and it was it was the guy that played Draken from Kim Possible. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Do you know what it is?
Oh, John DiMaggio.
Yes, DiMaggio. John DiMaggio was trying to be Mark Hamill, and it just didn't work for me, honestly. He was a fine Joker. He's not Mark Hamill, and I'm so used to hearing Mark Hamill play an animated Joker. And then the actual Red Hood was Jensen Ackles, who I'm just so used to hearing from Supernatural. And it was just odd hearing that recognizable voice in that role and it not being Supernatural. I mean, that's kind of unfair and it's really nitpicky. The rest of the movie was fantastic. It's a little nitpicky, but I have to say that was probably my favorite movie is Mask of the Phantasm and Under the Red Hood.
Well, if we're going based on animated films, Mask of the Phantasm, oh yeah, that's like my childhood in a nutshell. But The Dark Knight Returns parts 1 and 2, they nailed
Oh yeah, absolutely.
that movie.
Those were really good.
Honestly, the only problem I wish they got a better voice actor for Joker, which is funny because Under the Red Hood had it. I don't know who it was, but he was so subtle, and he played it very, 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 very creepy. I mean, it was good for what it was, but I wish there was a different voice actor or they went a different direction. But just talk about like completely taking a comic book and making it move. It was pretty perfect. And
have you read the original Batman Returns comic book?
I read half of it.
Okay.
And so far, half of it was just, and the fact that like it is kind of dated with the mutants and slice and dice and all that stuff, but they still made it creepy. They still made it work. I thought that was a really well done. I'm blanking on a lot of the animated films because I know there's a lot, but
no worries. Okay, so
yeah,
I am gonna cut you up into two different choices here because I want to hear your least favorite animated movie first. That was really loud.
Sorry.
I want to hear your least favorite animated movie first, and then I think I already know what your least favorite live action one. So go ahead and do your least favorite animated movie.
Oh.
I also think I know what your least favorite animated. Can I guess?
Sure.
Okay, it's gonna be The Killing Joke, right?
Yep. Oh my gosh,
I just saw that a couple days ago.
They
and I was
took
just like,
a complete.
This is so disappointing.
They took a complete dump over a classic. Oh my gosh! How?
And with Mark
What
Hamill playing the
happened?
Joker.
What the heck happened? I thought everybody was back from the animated series. I guess Warner Bros. Controlled them too. I don't know. Wow.
Yeah, it was frustrating because just the one. Okay, anyone. I won't spoil it for anyone who's seen it. You shouldn't. But the one scene between Batman and Batgirl was just painfully awkward.
Not only that,
and wrong.
just so many. Like when reading that comic, because I did read it. I played it better in my head. And I read it when I was like 18. So I was just a young kid back then. So like I don't know. Like yeah, I guess they played it safe or well, one of the biggest things.
I'm not even sure they played it
definitely
safe.
Well, they definitely pandered to what's hip nowadays, where it was all about Batgirl, and then there was a gay character, and they definitely pandered in a lot of ways to our culture.
Yeah.
So,
Which,
yeah.
I mean,
Not
geez,
needed
it's the Killing
because,
Joke. You don't need to.
Right, because it was
I
made in
was-
the 80s, and even when it was made in the 80s, it wasn't a statement. Alan Moore wrote it to where it could be done in any time period, because Gotham is one of those cities where it doesn't matter what time frame it is. Gotham is Gotham.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I don't know. It was really disappointing because I'm such a huge fan of Mark Hamill, and I'm a huge fan of Kevin. What's his face?
Conroy.
Conroy. I can't. I know his first name is Kevin. I can never remember his last name. And they brought back the original Batgirl, didn't they? It was.
Yeah.
Was it Tara Strong? Is that who it was?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I thought so. She's like the voice of my childhood. She
Bubbles!
plays all my favorite characters. But oh gosh, they just mangled it so badly, and it was really disappointing. Especially because so many of the animated movies are so good.
Mm-hmm.
Like Justice League War is another one that's really good.
Oh, yeah. I really... Oh, yeah.
But okay, so let's move on to live action. Least favorite live action. And again, I'm going to guess. It's Batman versus Superman, isn't it?
No.
Really?
Really.
Oh, okay.
No.
Hang on. Second guess. Schumacher, Batman.
I could have fun with that, though.
Really?
Yeah, because, like...
Okay, so what
because
is it then?
because it was a toy commercial anyway.
Yeah,
and
okay,
if
it
you
was.
do the research, like, it was a toy commercial with, like, yeah.
Okay, least favorite. What is it?
Suicide Squad.
Oh, really?
I couldn't
Really?
even have fun with that one.
Oh
It
my
just
gosh.
angered me to the core. Especially since, like, there were so many moments where I didn't walk out, but I just, like, I was watching it going, wow, Warner Bros., you have no idea what you have. You have no clue who these characters really are.
Yeah.
Like, people talk about how much Margot Robbie captured Harley Quinn. Some of the times. Other times she was a comic relief, throwing out one-liners that were really dumb. The only thing that I laughed at was anything Will Smith said. Because anything Will Smith said,
Will Smith was probably like the heart and soul of that movie, but it was still pretty...
He was,
Ugh.
but just they tried to be Guardians of the Galaxy, but they were too late to the punch.
Way too
But
late.
while we're talking about Suicide Squad, I need to talk about the trailer, and I'm not talking about the Ballroom Blitz or the Bohemian Rhapsody trailer. I'm talking about the Comic-Con trailer.
The original, yeah.
Where it was this dark, eerie, creepy tone, and I was like,
It looked
I want to see this.
freaking awesome.
And I think the studio looked at David Ayer and said, no, because Guardians is making money, because this is making money, and Marvel's not doing anything like that. So they scrapped the whole thing. In fact, based on the Comic-Con trailer, it looked like the Enchantress was going to be the protagonist. Because it kind of looked like she was coming into the Suicide Squad, which would have been really interesting. This young girl coming into this band of evil
Suicide
people.
Squad, yeah.
And also, just...
From what I understand, I actually have a professor who knows the editor, and they edited that movie to death. They reshot days before they finished it.
You can
because you can tell it's really disorganized, which is really unfortunate because again, Suicide Squad is one of my favorite like groups of super freaks anywhere.
Where you knew, like I was also discussing this with my little brother. One thing that could have really fixed this movie would have been, you know, at the end, and spoilers, sorry. You know, at the end when Enchantress is giving everybody visions, and Harley's vision.
Oh, that was so wrong. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I've never walked out of a theater. I wanted to walk out of the theater. I was like,
that's not Harley Quinn.
That's not Harley. Harley's point is she wants to be as crazy as him. Not she wants him to be normal. She wants to be as crazy as the Joker so then he can love her.
Say what you will about Harley, but she loves the Joker for who he is.
Exactly.
Crazy though that may be.
What I thought would have been perfect is the part where she falls into the acid. The vat of acid.
And that was so
because
weird anyways.
That would have been the perfect vision because she would have became Joker. She would have became as crazy as he was.
Yeah. No, I completely agree on that. And the way it was shot, it makes it seem like that was the original vision.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that had to do with sort of those flashback scenes seemed correct, with the exception of the Joker like diving into the water. But if it was a vision, then that would make sense.
Exactly.
As the Joker diving into the water, that made no sense.
Exactly. Joker would never
do that. He's not that character. He's
Just
perfectly willing to leave Harley and let her die.
Just look at
She's
the
just a
episode in Batman the Animated Series, Mad Love.
Oh, yes.
That's all you had to do. The studio just had to look at that and went, that is what Joker and Harley's relationship is. That's it. She wants to be as crazy as him, and it's an abusive relationship. And it also, it could have taught something. It could have taught people who deal with that in real life. It can tell people, get out. It's a depiction of what that life is like and a warning sign of don't be in that life. But instead, Suicide Squad doesn't teach anything. It just panders, and all it does.
And it panders to Marvel audiences.
Yeah. And yet nobody, like a couple people were impressed, but if you look all over the internet, there's not a lot of people that were impressed with that. And Joker doesn't growl or purr. Like, there was only one time where I really thought, wow, Jared Leto's Joker. And it's when that guard is sitting down and he's in the back alley, he's in the back room with all the gangsters, and they're like, you're lucky he wants to speak with you and you're not dead and all this stuff. And he's like, what is it? And when Joker like slams his hands on his shoulders and he goes, oh my gosh, that was the one time where I was like, yep, that's Joker.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden he started purring, and then he climbed on top of him and straddled him.
And
I was like,
just really uncomfortable for everyone involved.
Like, there's Joker weird, and then there's just like
weird.
What's going on? What are you doing with this character that people love?
Calm down, Joker. Your Jared Leto is showing through. Yeah.
And I don't blame Jared Leto, by the way.
Personally,
I blame the studio.
I blame the studio for a lot of it because, again, from what I understand, it was much, much better in its first cut, and then they cut it to death for some reason. God, I don't know why they did that. It's so frustrating because, again, these are some of the coolest characters,
and also
they're all insane and crazy and awesome.
Also, it really infuriates me that they had the perfect story they could have ever done, and it was in a cartoon. It was called Batman Return or Assault on Arkham.
Oh God, I love Assault
all
on
they
Arkham.
Needed to do.
Just adapt Assault on Arkham.
All they needed to do.
God,
Not
please.
even adapt. Shot for shot. Just do that. Live action, and everybody would have been happy. It was about going to Arkham, which, by the way,
it was just a Suicide Squad movie.
Exactly, because Harley was needed. Harley knew Joker. Harley had connections to Arkham Asylum. She needed to be there. Unlike now, where she's fighting a bunch of these putty alien things, and all she's got is a gun and a bat.
And
she was
and the worst part about the conflict of that story is that anyone could have done it. Why on earth weren't any of the people from the Justice League? We've been introduced to them now. Why didn't any of them go help? Why was the only Batman in that movie Batman at the end of it and Batman right in the middle, like taking out?
I'm pretty sure
Will
Batman
Smith.
would have showed up if a big giant beam shot into the sky. He would have been there, and so would Flash. And the fact that they weren't already shows these heroes are not being good heroes.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that this could have been the Justice League, and we will talk about the Justice League trailer in a little while because that looks awesome. But we're gonna. You disagree?
Not that I disagree. I've got things to say about that
Okay.
trailer.
We'll talk about it later, though. But this would have been the kind of thing that the Justice League could have handled. There was no reason that the Suicide Squad had to do it. Make Assault on Arkham. And by the way, if you haven't seen Assault on Arkham, it's an animated movie. I think it might still be on Netflix. You should definitely watch it because it's like the best Suicide Squad movie.
But warning, I think it's PG-13,
I'm pretty
but
sure
it
it's
should have
PG-13.
been R.
Really?
Like I'm telling you now, don't let kids watch that one. Like there's
don't
heads
watch that.
blowing off. Like I think somebody's head gets blown off.
Yeah, but it's cartoon,
lot of
so
blood.
it's not R. That's,
Exactly,
basic
but,
reason
but
it's not
I
R.
still wouldn't let kids watch that.
yeah, the Killing Joke was R for very different reasons. Yeah, it's not really a kids movie. That PG-13 rating means something in that one. But moving on, I do really want to talk about Batman versus Superman because that's personally my least favorite. At least I got a laugh out of Suicide Squad, so I didn't hate it as much. But Batman versus Superman was just depressing and boring and literally had one scene that I laughed during, and it was out of like tension.
Okay, I want to say, for one thing, I do not hate Batman v Superman at all. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out that I don't hate it. There are a lot of problems with it, but we'll get into it.
Yeah. Kind of my idea with Batman versus Superman is part of the problem was that it was just really unorganized, and I don't know why they needed to make that movie then. Because the biggest problem with DC as far as I'm concerned is that they're trying to play catch up with Marvel. And they just don't need to. They just do DC things. Use your characters, let them build up. People would have still gone see it if we'd had a Batman movie. I mean, given Man of Steel kind of sucked, but I didn't. I know you disagree. I know you disagree, but
I disagree.
most people don't.
I know I'm in the minority, but I found appreciation with Man of Steel, and we'll talk about that later.
Because you're such a philosophical guy.
Thanks.
You are.
Thanks.
It's not an insult.
I guess so.
But I don't know. It was just really frustrating for me to watch them just butcher these characters that I've loved my whole life, and just for no reason, to have no reason for anything that happened in the movie. I mean, I get Batman not liking Superman. I do not get Superman not liking Batman. That just didn't make... Go ahead. That didn't make any sense to me.
Before I answer, or sorry, comment to that, I do want to say that one of the problems of Batman v Superman is they are actually doing a mistake Marvel did. And people criticized it for doing that. Avengers Age of Ultron, one of the things people really didn't like was there were scenes that just were advertisements to the next one.
Yeah.
And people were like, well, I didn't need to see that, and what did that have to do with now? Like, for instance, Thor in a pool watching the Infinity Stones. That could have been something. In fact, it looked more like a stinger at the end. Like, that could have been a great stinger at the end.
Not to mention, they didn't have one in Age of Ultron.
Yeah,
and
that
I
too.
was angry. I went to see that at a drive-in. It was it was like the last time this drive-in was showing anything. And a couple of my friends went out to see Age of Ultron. And I saw it for the first time there, and it was freezing. And I sat through those entire freaking credits. And we didn't get an end credit scene.
So in my eyes, like the whole thing with Batman's vision, with Darkseid and Superman is evil and all that, that was like Age of Ultron. Like, I really was like, oh crap, they're doing what Marvel did, where they're not showing the movie they want to show now. They're showing a movie that they want to do later, which, by the way, not a good idea to start with Injustice. I understand that Injustice is so popular, and this is why I think the studio, all they did was sit in a room and went, okay, what's popular? What's making money? And the problem with making Injustice now is we don't know these characters yet.
No.
Like, Marvel has their phases and everything. Injustice should be DC's phase 4. Like, it should not be its phase 1. It should, no way.
They definitely shouldn't have blown their Superman is dead this early. Because if they do it again, it's not going to have any impact because you already did this and it didn't matter. But I mean, like, if you go through watching, like, the animated movies, not all of them are connected, but a lot of them are. And you get to see, like, these introductions of characters. And, gosh, I mean, part of the problem with that movie was that I just didn't feel for any of the characters. Like, I had no emotional investment because, honestly, I watched Man of Steel and found nothing in him to be emotionally invested for. And I also found nothing in this new Batman. I mean, I liked Ben Affleck's Batman. I really did. I thought he did a great job. It was just, I just don't know him. Not to mention that this was the first of 2 different movies that hints at Robin being killed and hints at a much, much better movie that we haven't seen.
Killed by Harley. Don't
by-
get me started on that. Because also, that was another thing I really didn't like about Suicide
Pardon
Squad.
my pterodactyl noises.
The fact that, like, Amanda Waller's talking about Harley and saying, yeah, she's crazier than Joker. And I'm like,
No.
So basically what you're doing is, again, to pander, you're making Harley Joker. You're making a female Joker. And by the way, Harley is not a female Joker. She's way more than that. And that's not only insulting to the
Harley
character.
is actually a more interesting character than the Joker.
Well, I would say they're both interesting together. Like,
more
really
interesting emotionally speaking.
Yeah, definitely. But if you'll excuse me, and this will probably be where the longness happens, but if you'll allow me to rant.
Go for it.
I'm not gonna
I invited you here to rant.
I'm not gonna get angry. I'm just gonna kind of say, and this is just gonna go into the internet verse, but I really think, and I came up with it the other day or so, biggest problem with DC, forget about like destruction, forget about all these nitpicky things. Let's really get down to the bottom of why DC is not working right now.
Go for it.
It's because every single idea that is put on screen that they're doing right now is interesting. It's fascinating stuff. Superman actually being an alien that came to Earth. That's a fascinating idea. Batman being 40 and retired and his Robin died. So he's this bitter old man. That's really interesting. The world looking at Superman and saying, is he friend or foe? That's interesting. But, and this is the huge but, they're not entertaining. There's a big difference between interesting and entertaining. I think what Zack Snyder and all the board of Warner Bros., what they did was they went, all right, and they just kind of threw out all these ideas. And there's some really good ideas. They're really fascinating stuff. But it's not entertaining to watch Superman watching the TV complain about him. That's an interesting idea. So interesting. But not a fun one. And I know, now dark movies can be fun, and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about it's not fun to watch the media put down Superman. That's not fun to watch. Because we as the audience already know Superman's a good guy. So when the media is saying, is he a friend or a foe? The audience is going, he's a friend.
Duh.
He's a friend. Because we saw in Man of Steel, he was for us. We got his side of the story. Now, this is how Batman v Superman should have been. If they really wanted to go with this, pick a protagonist. Don't have Superman be a protagonist. Have Batman. And scrap Man of Steel. I know I like it, but if you really wanted to go with this route, scrap Superman. Scrap Man of Steel. Don't show Superman. Don't show his origin because everybody knows his origin. Don't show it. Have Superman fighting Zod. Have that be the beginning of your cinematic universe. Bam. You have Superman, you have Batman. You have Batman looking at Superman, destroying everything. And in the audience's mind, because what happens with a protagonist is there's a catharsis that happens where you essentially become the main character. So when we're Bruce Wayne, we're looking at Superman and we're going, why is he destroying the city? I thought he's a good Superman. I thought Superman was great. I thought, why doesn't he? And that's when the conversations can start happening. That's when in your mind you have an interesting and entertaining story trying to find out, is this Superman our friend or our foe, and have Batman look at the news, have Batman look at the TV with them saying he destroyed another monument, or people are praising him, or he's a new god. Have Batman go, Psh, yeah, right. Because we'd also probably say, yeah, right. So it all comes down to the fact that it's an interesting idea, and so many interesting ideas, but you're not finding ways that are making it entertaining. Because I did understand, like everybody says, one of the reasons why you don't like Batman v Superman is because you didn't understand it. I did get it. And one of the things I really got about it was the audience, what Zack Snyder did. It's a clever idea. I'm not saying the man's a hack. I'm not saying he's awful.
I am.
Well, opinions. But what I am saying is it all comes down to the point of the movie was we were the media. The audience was the media, but we already knew. We already knew who Batman was. We already knew who Superman was. So this whole back and forth, this whole thing of, should we trust them? Yeah, because there are heroes and we already know there are heroes. So, yeah, and going off of what you were saying about there was no reason for Superman to fight Batman, you're right. And if I'm going to be completely honest, it is tough. And I think before they even started this script, they should have figured that out. Even before saying, oh, Batman has to fight him because of this. Or they shouldn't have even focused on Batman fighting first. They should have focused on Superman because it's easy. It's easy for why Batman would fight Superman.
Oh, of course.
But Superman fighting Batman, that's hard. That's really, really tough. And I understand.
The thing is that this has already been done well. The animated movie, that's basically the same story. You know what I'm talking about? I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Was it World's Finest? Was it the Superman animated series?
I think they actually just called... No, I think it was an animated movie. It was really dark. It ended... Spoiler, sorry. It ended with, like, Batman looking like he's dead, but he's not really. Have you seen that one? It was... I think they actually called it Batman versus Superman. But it was really good. Like, I enjoyed that movie.
What did they do? Like, why did Superman fight Batman? Because honestly, I'm drawing a blank. I'm a writer, and I'm drawing a blank. Or sorry, I want to be a writer, and I'm drawing a blank for how Superman would want to fight Batman. I understand that in Batman v Superman, like, stole the mother. That's not good enough. That really, it's a good start, but that's not good enough.
I think the idea was that Superman legitimately thought that Batman was a danger. Like, an actual danger. And I mean that
okay.
I can see that. I can understand it.
Yeah.
And I think Batman, honestly, like, he didn't really care. It was focused a little bit more on Superman, I think, than Batman in that movie. If I remember, it's been a while since I've seen it, but it was done well and it was interesting. And it ended the exact opposite of how Batman versus Superman ended. But it was that older Batman. It was that older... All of the characters were older, with the exception of Superman, obviously.
If I could actually... If I could just throw out one idea that I've actually had... I had an idea for this. Back when they announced it, I actually had an idea, and I didn't write it down, but it was in my head. At the end of Man of Steel, you see him destroy the satellite, and he says, I'm not on anyone's side. Right. I think it would have been really interesting and entertaining if Superman did side with the military. If he did side with the government. Because after destroying the satellite and everything, he kind of comes to his senses and goes, you know what? Maybe in order for them to trust me, I gotta make a treaty with them. Because, by the way, that would be something done in the animated series universe. Like, that's something that's super... Think about the very first episode of Justice League Animated. The animated show. I think, like, Superman got rid of nuclear weapons. And then that was when the Martians were able to come down. But, spoilers. But like,
Just go watch the show. You can find it somewhere.
Oh, such a good show. But anyway, like, it would have been really interesting and so fascinating if Superman actually went to the government and said, you know what? I did a lot of damage with this whole Zod thing. And I want to be kept in check. I want to do my diligence. I'm for truth, justice, and the American way. You know, that would have been our Superman.
They will never have him say that ever again.
Probably not.
Which is really unfortunate.
But like, yeah, like, it would have been really interesting if he like went to the government and was like, look, I'm here for you. And the government was like, okay, that's fascinating. Or sorry, yeah, okay, great. And then in my head, I had it to where Batman was, because I did have it to where he was 40, because I knew that's where they were going with it. Batman was 40, and he does decide to kill people. He decides, you know what? Screw this. I'm done with doing it the way that I normally did, because nothing's worked. And so he comes back, like Batman comes back, because, again, it was a long time ago. I forgot why he came back.
I see where you're going with this, but at the same time, that would have been an ender. That would have been an ender to this entire world that they're trying to create.
Oh, no. I'm not saying an ender. Like, I'm saying, like, because of Superman's, like, I don't know how it would have happened, but, like, because of Superman's example, maybe something along the lines of, like, his example brings Bruce out of that dark place or something like that.
Yeah.
But what I would have...
I can see that.
But what I would have done was, I would have had it to where the military, the government, the people, the world tells Superman, stop Batman. And then Batman looks at Superman as a threat too, and they go to blows where Superman's like, I don't want to do this.
You've really got to see that animated movie, because that's very close to the plot of the animated movie.
See, that would have been really entertaining.
See, the thing is that I can see where they were looking at the animated movie and going, oh, I kind of like this idea. Let's kill it. And it's just so frustrating to watch an animated movie that was actually pretty good and then watch this, which was not.
Second, like, besides the interesting versus entertaining, second biggest reason why Warner Bros. Is not doing as well as Marvel is because you can tell they don't like their characters. They don't like them. They don't like
Batman.
They like Batman, and they only like Batman. Every single interview I hear them talk about, well, Superman's not interesting, so we have to make him interesting. See, when they made Captain America, when they made the first Captain America, I saw their interview, and their interview was, you know, he's a goody two-shoes, but he's the best goody two-shoes. And they kept to the character and made the environment around him different and interesting. Not necessarily, but not changing the actual character. Marvel, Kevin Feige loves these characters. He adores these characters. He wants
For those of you who don't know, Kevin Feige is the producer for the vast majority of the Marvel movies.
Thank you. He wants these characters to come to the big screen in a huge way. Warner Bros. Only sees money and only sees, well, Batman's the only one that's made us so successful. So let's make every single character like Batman. And it's getting really, really old.
Part of the reason that Batman is such an interesting character is because he is different from most of the other characters. He's so different from most of the people in the Justice League, and that's one thing that in the animated movies, they do really well. They make him the outsider. He is the outsider. He's sort of like, not the everyman, but he's like a different character. He's the dark character that thinks very logically about things and doesn't use his heart to think about things, where the other characters, generally speaking, use less of their brains and more of their hearts. And that's fine, because they're the other characters. And that's good. I like that. But it's not Batman. And every character doesn't need to be Batman. He's not special if everyone is like him.
See, Man of Steel was Superman if done by the Dark Knight. That is what it really is.
Just why it was
because
so
what it,
frustrating.
what it is it's okay, how do we make how do we make Superman real? Well, make him a real alien. And yes, everybody talks about the collateral damage, but that's how you Dark Knight Superman. Because in the real world, if these big gods were fighting, everything would be destroyed. It's true. And I like Man of Steel not as a Superman movie. Like, I don't view it as a Superman movie. I view it as an experiment. And I enjoyed the experiment. I did think, and I had fun with the experiment that they tried to, and a lot of people think they failed, but what they did was they tried to make Superman relatable. They tried to make the audience feel as though they were Superman. They wanted you to save the world. And that's why he didn't carry Zod off into the Arctic. Because if we were put in that situation, we wouldn't know what to do. We're struggling he's struggling. Again, different opinions, because many people are like, but I wanted to see a Superman movie. Yeah. And you're completely entitled to that. For me, the reason why it worked was because I thought it was different enough. And I liked the experiment they did. To actually do the Justice League based off of an experiment, I don't know if I really like that idea.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll talk about the Justice League trailer in a little while. But first, I want to start talking trailers, because this has been a really interesting conversation. I think to put a book cap on the end of the Batman versus Superman talk, I think it wasn't great, but it wasn't 20% on Rotten Tomatoes bad. It was not that bad. I would give it like 5 or 6 out of 10, but it's depressing and disappointing, but it was not that bad. And that one scene with Wonder Woman where it was like, I thought she came with you, that was hilarious. The rest of the movie could have been like that, and it would have been interesting. Well, I really, really hope Justice League is like that.
The one thing that again, call me petty, but everybody talks about that Trinity shot. I was disappointed with that Trinity shot because Wonder Woman was at the front. Superman should have been at the front. And I know that sounds so petty, but that's the Justice League. Wonder Woman was never front and center. She never was. So, I mean, I don't know. That irked me. But yeah, I wouldn't call it as bad as everybody says it was, because there are definitely parts in it that I can appreciate. And though the fight between Batman and Superman was disappointing, because they did a much more dark, brutal angle rather than, like, the worst part about Batman v Superman was, I remember going to the theater and having two guys, one with a Batman shirt, one with a Superman shirt, and they were both talking, and they were like, man, $5 on Superman kicking Batman's rear end. They were like, that kind of conversation is like, yeah, you couldn't do that. Like, this wasn't that movie, but it should have been. It should have been this idea. It shouldn't have been Batman completely pounding Superman into the ground and this really emotional thing. It should have been this brawl fight. It should have been, oh my gosh, who's going to win? You knew who was going to win. You knew Batman was going to completely annihilate Superman. Like, from the beginning shot, you knew he was going to win. So there was none of that, like, betting on someone winning a fight kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll leave it there, because we could, again, go on for quite a while, and we're at about an hour now. So I'm actually going to say goodbye for this half of this conversation, because I do want to keep going, but this episode is getting really long. So thank you to my audience at home. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And Kevin, I will see you in like 4 seconds to do the second half of this conversation. This will go up next week. So I'll see you guys all, and see you guys next week. Bye-bye.